Thank you. On December 19th, 2025, after decades of secrecy, thousands of documents and photographs linked to the Jeffrey Epstein case began to be released to the public by federal order. It was a promise of complete transparency. But what came to light was a fragment with images of powerful celebrities and global figures, many without context or clear explanation. The release is part of the so-called Epstein Files Transparency Act. Thousands of files, thousands of photos, but also thousands of redactions. A lot came out, but much of it remains incomplete or redacted, meaning censored. This generated criticism even from survivors and lawmakers. Jeffrey Epstein was not just a sexual predator, he was a connector. A man without a clear business, without a visible career, but with direct access to presidents, princes, tycoons, and celebrities. For decades, he acted openly, and when arrested, he died. Or was it before he could speak? Since then, one question has remained. Who was Epstein going to expose if he made it to trial? Among the most prominent figures is former United States President Bill Clinton, who appears in several photographs with Epstein or his close associates. Clinton without a shirt, in a jacuzzi, with a person whose face was hidden. Images of Clinton swimming in a pool with Ghislaine Maxwell. Photos show the former president on what seems to be Epstein's private plane. These photographs do not imply a crime by themselves, they are social portraits without legal context, but they do show the frequency of the violence. Interaction between Clinton and Epstein and also with Maxwell at different moments not officially dated. If you're interested in this topic, you can help us by leaving a like on this video or comments asking for a second part. This case has already been covered several times on this channel, so we'll leave you the links to the previous videos. In the end, the Department of Justice didn't release the files of its own accord. They released them because they ran out of time. A law passed by Congress in November required the release of the documents from the Epstein case. The deadline was approaching and the pressure was unbearable. President Donald Trump faced months of internal and external pressure to comply with the law. Finally, on Friday, the files began to appear on an official website created exclusively for this purpose. Thousands of documents, yet one detail stands out. From the very beginning, it was clear that much of the material was censored, faces covered, names erased, entire paragraphs hidden. The Department of Justice said the censorship aims to protect victims, avoid disrupting investigations, and stop the spread of abuse material. But for congressmen, journalists, and survivors, the feeling was different. Was the law only being followed in appearance? Among the published documents, there was something no one could ignore: the photographs, official images seized by the United States government. In them appear top-level figures: Bill Clinton, Mick Jagger, Michael Jackson, and other personalities from the political and cultural power circles. It's important to say this clearly: appearing in a photo does not imply having committed a crime. But these images destroy a long-held narrative, that of distant, symbolic, or non-existent relationships. Now, the relationships were documented. If there's one figure who dominates this first batch of documents, it's Bill Clinton. The images show him in a pool with two women, one of them with her face covered, lying back in a jacuzzi, looking relaxed. Alongside Ghislaine Maxwell, Epstein's associate, now serving 20 years for sex trafficking. Clinton was photographed with Epstein several times in the 90s and early 2000s. His circle maintains there was no trafficking. Clinton didn't know anything about Epstein's crimes. His spokesperson was clear: you can publish all the blurry photos from over 20 years ago that you want. This isn't about Bill Clinton. According to his defense, there are two groups: those who broke ties before everything came to light, and those who remained connected. Clinton, they claim, belongs to the first group. Other of the most viral images show former Prince Andrew Mountbatten Windsor at a social event lying by the fire. One has become a woman is a person who has changed. A woman is the fact that someone has become. The fact of becoming is that someone has become. A fact that someone has become a woman. That a person has become a woman is a woman made from scandal. In this first batch of documents, there is a figure who barely appears: Donald Trump. Trump had social ties with Epstein in the 1990s and 2000s that is documented. He has not been formally accused by the victims and claims to have cut all ties more than 15 years before Epstein's arrest. The files also include images with various figures from the world of entertainment and culture. Michael Jackson appears in at least one picture with Epstein. Mick Jagger, leader of the Rolling Stones, is also seen in photographs shared with Clinton and other individuals. Other photos show people like Richard Branson and journalist Walter Cronkite, with Epstein and Maxwell in different social settings. Also Abraham Noam Chomsky, a linguist, philosopher, political scientist, intellectual, and activist. This is important. A published photo doesn't mean these people committed a crime. It only shows their image was in the case files. For example, in the case of Michael Jackson, fans point out that he was trying to buy properties and was introduced to Epstein. For this reason, beyond direct images, other figures are mentioned or identified in publications related to sets of files released by Congress. Donald Trump has been mentioned in photos and clippings from Epstein's files, although not in directly compromising positions. Bill Gates, Steve Bannon, and some other names also appeared in images released by legislators in recent public statements. These publications often accompany the official files and are part of the public debate about how complete the released material is. Public information so far lacks dates, exact location, or context for the photos. Additionally, many women's faces are redacted for privacy protection, and many photos lack descriptions or reliable metadata. Explicit or sensitive material remains protected from the public, while text documents are simply censored with black bars almost entirely. This has frustrated survivors and critics who view the disclosure as incomplete and inadequate for understanding Epstein's network of relationships. These images are not just curious photos, they are fragments of a story where power, fame, and impunity seem to intersect in ways society once demanded to understand. The partial release of the files sparked outrage in Congress. Both Republicans and Democrats accused the Department of Justice of violating the spirit of the law. Meanwhile, groups close to Trump enthusiastically shared the photos of Clinton, suggesting that the release could politically benefit him, and that the president of the Dominican Republic couldn't. Why do so many well-known names appear in these files? Was there a cover-up or just social relationships? What other material remains out of public view for legal or political reasons? What we do know is this: the release of the files opened a door, but it didn't let in all the light. As more people review these documents, demand for full clarity increases. The Epstein files are already public, that's a fact, but public doesn't mean complete, and transparent doesn't mean honest. Because when a state decides which part of the truth to show and which part to hide, the truth stops being a right and becomes a managed product. For years we heard there was no evidence and it was just conspiracy theories, but now we know that's not true. That the photos existed, that the records existed, and the relationships existed. What didn't exist was the willingness to show them. And even now, when they're finally published, they come incomplete, with faces blurred, with names cut off, with stories half told. Not to protect the victims who already spoke out and asked for the truth, but to protect something much bigger. Because Epstein was living proof that power surrounds itself with silence. Silence from those who knew, silence from those who suspected, silence from those who preferred not to ask. And when Epstein died in a cell, that silence became final. There was no trial, no names read out loud, no one held responsible, facing uncomfortable questions, just a body and a case closed far too quickly. Today, those files reopen the wound, but they do it carefully with gloves, without pressing too hard. As if someone is afraid that if you pull the thread too hard, the whole fabric will come undone. Maybe that's the most unsettling truth of all. Not who appears in the photos, not who is missing from the documents, but the fact that, even after everything, the truth still needs permission to exist. And as long as that permission remains in the hands of those in power, the Epstein case will never truly be closed. This wasn't the end, it was just the first chapter.